Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and we're here to do a quick dive, not like a full-blown film session hour-long video, but a quick dive into why this Cliff Kingsbury offense has struggled so much the past couple of weeks, especially against the Cowboys for the first 3.5 quarters. Also, Dan Quinn spoke out about this Cliff Kingsbury offense problem. We're going to dive into that. And then, of course, I have some big-time injury updates, especially for Austin Ekeler, who went to the hospital last night for his head injury that he suffered against the Cowboys. And then, of course, I have Brian Robinson and Andrew Wiley updates as well. And we got to talk about this running back depth right now. Austin Ekeler hurt, Brian Robinson hurt. We're going to talk about all of that and more, but before we do, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all pulling up and supporting all of the videos. I know right now the fan base doesn't feel as high and mighty as we did just a couple of weeks ago, but I appreciate y'all for even still clicking on this video and still caring about the team enough to even support this channel. So I really appreciate y'all. And without further ado, let's go and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. And so first of all, let's just take a look at some facts before we even start to dive into opinions, film session stuff, why we think the offense is failing. How about we actually take a look at how bad this offense actually is? Well, first of all, if you look on the screen right now, going horizontally left to right, that's how good we are as far as pass plays go, efficiency wise. Going bottom to top, going down to up, that is how good we are at running the ball efficiency wise. And just to let you know, weeks 1 through 7, we were first in EPA per play out of the entire NFL. Since week 8, we are now 18th in EPA per play. Again, it's not like we've just fallen off a complete cliff. It's not like we've just gone just from first to worst or anything like that. We're still at least somewhere in the middle, like average in the NFL. But going from first to 18th is still a pretty steep drop. That's why we're talking about Cliff's cliff. Cliff Kingsbury's proverbial cliff, where it seems like second half of seasons, defenses figure him out and he's not able to adjust. So again, looking at overall, just this is weeks 8 through 12 that you're seeing on your screen right now as well. And that's where we are weeks 8 through 12. It's been really bad, but if you're looking at other teams, it could be way worse is my main point. But still, why do we go from the best offense in football to now in the middle of the pack for the past few weeks? Well, Dan Quinn was basically asked that during his media availability today, and I'm pretty sure he came into that media press conference knowing that he would be asked that, because he was asked that before the Cowboys game even happened. He basically brushed it off like, man, we'll get back on track and things like that. This is a good week to get back on track. You know, he didn't necessarily say it specifically, but the Cowboys have a bad defense. Now, of course, they got Deron Bland back and Micah Parsons back for the past couple of weeks. So when you're looking at their stats overall for the season, we got to remember that those guys were not available. So that was a slightly better defense, but still, even with those guys, that defense was not as good as it seemed with the way that our offense was just so anemic and so inefficient, so sporadic, and it was just ridiculous. So the Cowboys defense may be slightly better than it has been overall throughout the season, especially health-wise, but it's still a pretty bad defense, even with Micah Parsons and Deron Bland. So my main point is no excuses. But either way, Dan Quinn said last week, before that Cowboys game, just a few days ago actually, that, you know, the offense is going to get back on track. I'm sure about that. I still trust in Cliff Kingsbury and things like that. So you already knew after what the offense did against the Cowboys, Dan Quinn was not looking forward to his media availability today, as in Monday, November 25th. Because Quinn was asked about Cliff Kingsbury's offense not evolving his defense to start to adjust and shut down some of his tendencies in the play calling. Quinn talked about basically focusing more so on skill work, timing, and execution, if anything. He said, quote, "You don't reinvent what you do. It's doing what you already do, but better." Unquote. And I kind of feel that. I feel like we shouldn't just completely flip this offense upside down and start from scratch. We just got to take what we do really well, take how we were the best offense in the NFL for the first 7-8 weeks, and then, you know, make adjustments from that. But don't just completely reinvent the wheel, start from scratch. Do not do that. And he was also asked about, like, Cliff Kingsbury and his offense is regressing in the second half of years. And basically, if he gave that any thought during the hiring process, basically Cliff Kingsbury has a tendency to let his offenses fall off a cliff second half of seasons. They start off hot and then they end cold. And was that like anywhere in your thinking, and at least in the back of your mind and in your conscience, when you were going through the hiring process looking for offensive coordinators, and when you decided to hire Cliff Kingsbury, was this something that you basically worried about? He said, quote, "Sure, I probably don't give it as much, and here's why. You're talking about a different program with different people and different players. And so I think going into it and you're putting in a system together, you want to make sure that you're featuring the players and the things that they do best and all of that. And so I think Cliff's done a good job of that. Although there's peaks and valleys, and any season that's just going to go. I don't have any sense of what somebody did, well before, because the system that was in place there is not the exact same carbon copy as the one here, unquote. And I do agree there. I mean, I feel like we do jump the gun a little bit as far as like on one end, comparing what he's doing for the Commanders, like roster-wise, coaching staff-wise. I mean, he didn't have Anthony Lynn. Bobby Johnson's doing an excellent job with the offensive line. He didn't have like a Jaden Daniels versus like a Kyler Murray, but even offensive line-wise, I feel like there's slightly more talent here. It's a nice ensemble of running backs as well. I mean, it's just a different team, a different situation. So I agree with Dan Quinn there, but at the same time, it's hard not to see this consistent pattern of the first 8 weeks of seasons, Cliff Kingsbury top of the mountain on offenses. Second half of seasons start to teeter off to where he's like in the middle. It's starting to happen again. This seems like deja vu for a Cliff Kingsbury led offense. But Jay Gruden talked about it himself. He even spoke on the fact that like one change he would definitely make if he were Cliff Kingsbury. He said, quote, "I think he does a good job in the running game, but I think some of his passing game, if I had any recommendations from him at all, it would be to move Terry McLaurin around a little bit. You can't always put him on the left. Use the word Buckeye, then Noah Brown and Terry switch sides. It's not that hard. Line them up on the right side, put them on the field sometimes, not to be the boundary where you always he's always your left hash. And then the slant to Noah Brown, let Terry run that slant route and just say the word Buckeye and let Terry be the outside guy," unquote. So he's basically saying, like, first of all, you have two Ohio State guys, so you can even mix up the lingo like that to where it confuses defenses to where they're not exactly sure what's going on. They just hear Buckeye, and that's all they know from that. But us as an offense, since we rehearsed this, we know the lingo to a deeper level than a defense was, especially early on. Like for the rest of the season, maybe after the offseason and teams have an entire summer and offseason to game plan against that type of lingo or that verbiage, maybe they could catch up, but I don't think they would necessarily catch up very quickly mid-season. So maybe Jay Gruden's probably throwing out a decent idea out there, but I definitely agree with the fact that Terry McLaurin should not be on the same side all of the time. Now, we talked about this earlier in the season, like the first few weeks, and I kind of see like the advantage to it is like that's one less thing Jaden Daniels has to think about when he's reading the defense and then basically trying to strategize pre-snap. Like before he snaps the ball, he's looking at what the defense is doing. He knows what his offense is doing. That's one less calculation. He knows when in doubt, Terry McLaurin is always there, and he can focus on making all of the other calculations pre-snap around outside of just Terry McLaurin. But now I feel like at this point, honestly, man, Jaden Daniels, it's time to put on those big boy pants, and it's time, in my opinion, to go ahead and move Terry McLaurin around, and it's time for you to scan and account for and calculate the entire offense and the entire defense as well. I think it's time to move Terry McLaurin around. I feel like that would be very advantageous for this offense as a whole, but also Terry McLaurin getting the ball more, and Cliff Kingsbury's offense is not being exposed as bad by these opposing defenses, like, again, second half of seasons tend to happen. Also, Dan Orlovsky even did like a film session live on ESPN breaking down like what's going on with the Cliff Kingsbury's offense. He even tweeted the clip saying, "Yes, I'm concerned about the Commanders' offense." Basically said throughout the whole thing that Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury need to get the ball to Terry McLaurin way more often than they are. So Jay Gruden, Dan Orlovsky, they're saying it in different ways, but they mean basically the same thing. Terry McLaurin needs to get the ball more often. But of course, us as fans know that. We've been screaming that since we drafted Terry McLaurin with all of the different quarterbacks, head coaches that he's had to deal with, offensive coordinators, all of that. We've been screaming, get Terry McLaurin the ball way more than he gets it. And this year, you know, he's off to one of his better starts as far as getting the ball, but there's still times where it's just like, man, He got one target, I think, in the first half or something like that against the Cowboys. That's inexcusable. When Trevon Diggs is still out, Deron Bland is there, but you know, I wouldn't cover him like a master cover corner. He's like a risk taker that gets a lot of interceptions and pick sixes, but you can beat him with double moves. You know, he's still a sophomore that missed a lot of his sophomore season up to just a few games ago. So he's still almost like a rookie and a half right now. You could beat him. The Butler guy was playing really well, but I refuse to believe he could just handle Terry McLaurin one-on-one, even with a little bit of safety help. You have to find ways to get him the ball. And again, if you got to move him around the field, why not? I mean, remember the Bengals game. Terry McLaurin has this propensity of always being lined up as the outside receiver on the left side of the field, right? That Bengals game, the game basically winning touchdown, the real like dagger, they moved Terry McLaurin to the right side and then just threw it up to him. And the Bengals defense wasn't ready. Why do we not do that more often? I'm not sure. Shouts out to Jordan at Washington today on Twitter, because I agree. He brings up a good point. He said, not gonna lie, I think there's blame to go everywhere. Just pinning the offensive problems on play calling is not the way to go. There's been plenty of drops, poor pass blocking, and lack of rushing efficiency. I think it's a combination of conservative play calling and lack of execution. So it's the offensive coordinator, but also the players in the offensive system. This isn't just the Cliff Kingsbury offenses regress in November through January, unquote. And I kind of agree, because I do feel like that is part of it. I feel like defenses have adjusted to what Cliff Kingsbury is doing. He hasn't done a great job of countering back. They've hit him with a counter punch. He has not counterpunched their counter punch much at all yet. I'm pretty sure he's done some small things here and there. Maybe he's changed some things that we haven't noticed, but it hasn't produced results yet, at least positively enough to where we can see it live in the game, or even going back and looking at the tape. But either way, I agree somewhat with Washington today when he says, like, this isn't all about the regression, but I do still feel like this is some of the Cliff Kingsbury allows defenses to figure him out. He doesn't do a great job of figuring them back out again. He just comes out the gate, first 8 weeks, hoping whatever script he has together, whatever game plan he has, defenses just aren't ready for it. Once they have enough teaching tape on him, it gets a little ugly. Once they have enough tape on him, he just hasn't been able to counter that. And again, I feel like, to his point, which is why I agree with him somewhat, I feel like a lot of it is execution, though. I feel like even moments against the Cowboys, Cliff Kingsbury called the right play, he called a good play, but either Jaden Daniels wasn't seeing the receiver, or he would miss them and wouldn't be accurate enough, or the offensive line didn't give him enough time. Wide receivers weren't getting open. You know, it's a lot of different reasons, man. We just can't all pin this on one person. I agree with that. Also, Ryan Fowler, shouts out to him. He said he went back and rewatched the entire Commanders offense, looking at the all-22. He said a few things stood out. One, zero reason it took 55 minutes for Kingsbury to allow 5 to open it up, as in Jaden Daniels, to allow him to just actually take shots around the entire field rather than relying on just dinking and dunking. He's consistently proven to deliver on time and accurately all year long, masking many of the talent inefficiencies that Washington has away from Terry McLaurin. I completely agree, 100%. Offense looked like they were waiting for Dallas to throw the first punch on each drive. I completely agree. Cliff Kingsbury does deserve a lot of blame for this offense, especially against the Cowboys specifically, being so passive. What was that? Number 2. Ryan Fowler said teams watch tape and adjustments have been minimal. Scheme became predictable on early downs with alignment and personnel. Higher level of window dressing is needed in certain packages this late in the season. I completely agree. And then number 3. Was good to see Daniels' legs activated and taking the proverbial training wheels off, which will allow him to showcase his lofty performance ceiling. Away from the final few drives, it looked like Daniels was put in a box a little bit. I completely agree with all 3 of those. I mean, you couldn't have worded it any better. Shouts out to Ryan Fowler for going back and watching the all-22. I've been busy, so I haven't had the chance to go back and literally watch the all-22. I looked at a replay of the game, like the live broadcast version and some highlights, but I haven't had the chance to look at the all the way far out sky view yet. I want to get to that, and Ryan Fowler, I feel like, brings up some great points there. But let's go back to Dan Quinn. He said that he actually felt like they played looser earlier in the year. He wants them to get back to playing with the identity that they were creating in terms of speed and physical play, all of that type of stuff. He also said that it's easy to talk about standards when winning. Adherence to them tested more in times like this. I completely agree with all of that. I do feel like we're not playing as loose. I feel like Cliff Kingsbury, again, just to go back to Ryan Fowler's point, has been far more passive now than he used to be. I don't exactly know what's going on there, but I don't like it. I completely agree with Dan Quinn, where we need to get basically back to the identity that we had when our offenses were doing really well. But at the end of the day, man, teams are learning how to counter what we do well. This is a perfect example about this, and I started to notice this towards the end of the game, and I was really happy that Nick Ackerish from Pro Football Focus also noticed this and worded it really well. He tweeted, "The Cowboys knew exactly how to attack the Commanders' offensive line. For weeks, Washington's response to pressure was to chip the edge rushers, right?" And we've even discussed that and looked at that in some of my film sessions, especially for like Terry McLaurin and Luke McCaffrey and things like that. He finished up by saying the Cowboys countered that by moving Micah Parsons to the interior to prevent those chips on him, then held those routes up in the blitz inside the gaps. And you saw, I remember vividly, that one sack that Micah Parsons had on Jaden Daniels. Nick Allegretti got beat so quickly inside. It was either Samuel Cosme and Nick Allegretti. It was one of the guards got beat so quickly inside by Micah Parsons that Jaden Daniels never stood a chance. That was one of the examples of what I mean. Cliff Kingsbury could have called a good play. Jaden Daniels could have been on point that play, but the offensive line just didn't give him a chance. That's why I'm saying there's so much blame to go around. It's like a leaky ship. As soon as you fill up all of the other holes, a new hole just breaks open. As soon as the wide receivers finally get open, Jaden Daniels is actually scanning the field correctly. Cliff Kingsbury calls the right play. The offensive line doesn't give Jaden Daniels time to actually go out there and execute the play, for the receivers to go out there and even have time to get open and things like that. It's always something. If it's not the offensive line, it's Jaden Daniels. If it's not Jaden Daniels, it's the receivers. If not the receivers, the entire play call from Cliff Kingsbury. It's just always something the past few weeks. But I completely agree with the fact that we can blame a lot of the offensive struggles on the fact that teams are figuring out what to do against a Cliff Kingsbury offense, and the Cowboys did a great job of countering that. Again, we like to chip edge rushers. They said, all right, bet. How about we move our edge rushers to the inside and see how you chip that? And we just weren't ready. So Cliff Kingsbury needs to figure out a scheme to counter back to those counters. Also, shouts out to John Com. He pointed out the fact that in the first 7 games, Washington completed 43 of 60 passes versus 5+ man pressures with 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 7 sacks. In the last 5 games versus those exact same looks, they're 24 of 52 with only 2 touchdowns. That's 2 less, 1 interception, 1 more, and the same 7 sacks. Sunday, Washington did its usual chipping of the defensive ends and had running backs pick up the blitz, but at times, Dallas fooled with games and strategy. They rarely blocked only 5v5 Sunday. Why has it not worked? Good question. Have to figure it out. In some cases, more third and 6 and longer situations. But in the first 7 in that spot, 10 of 13, 191 yards. The last 5 games in that spot, 5 of 13, only 125 yards. There is a difference here between the first 8 weeks and these last 5 weeks. It definitely is. Also, shouts out to Rio Robinson. Before we move on to the injury situation that we have going on, I completely agree with what he said here. He said firing Cliff would make 0 sense. Y'all are wild, and I completely agree with that. It's just time for him to step up, adjust, and get better. But firing him is absolutely insane. I can't believe some people are saying that. Now, moving on to the injury updates. First of all, Austin Ekeler was concussed in the final seconds really of the Commanders' loss to the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday yesterday, and was taken to the hospital for further evaluation. Wow. Coach Dan Quinn said that he and general manager Adam Peters got to visit Ekeler before he went to the hospital, and a team spokesperson said that the decision to transport Ekeler was made out of an abundance of caution. So I guess we could exhale a little bit, but when you're running back, especially with the way he got hurt and the way it looked and how he was just lifeless on the ground, his legs were wobbly even like as soon as he got hit, and then also leaving the field after he finally regained conscious, it seemed like his legs were still a little wobbly. To hear that he went to the hospital after that was very scary. But apparently, according to the Commanders, we're just gonna have to take their word for it, it was out of an abundance of caution. Remember, Austin Ekeler, 29, was injured when he was tackled by Damone Clark and Nick Vigil on a kickoff return with 9 seconds left in the game. Ekeler remained down on the field for some time, being attended to by medical personnel, and players from each team knelt around him with their helmets off. So that was respect even from the Cowboys side on an injury like that. And it just felt so crazy because it felt like the game was already over. I appreciate what he was doing. I appreciate him having the heart to try. But man, I mean, the game was pretty much cooked at that point. I mean, miracles happen. We almost made a miracle with the Terry McLaurin long touchdown catch and run from Jaden Daniels. But That just felt like a play where it's like, man, we ran out of miracles. We ran out of opportunities. Every miracle that we got, we just squandered it away against the Cowboys. And Austin Ekeler, honestly, I appreciate you trying to win this game, but I prefer if he would have just stayed healthy. Now, of course, hindsight is 2020. And I wouldn't be saying this at all if he would have broke free for a kick return for a touchdown like Turpin did and would have ended up winning us the game. But still, man, that just sucks that the game pretty much felt like it was over. We were out of miracle points. We were out of luck points, whatever you want to call it. Like, we used it all up on the Terry McLaurin go-ahead touchdown. It just didn't seem very likely that we could pull a second miracle in the same game. Austin Ekeler return touchdown, but who knows? But also, I want to point out the fact that do not forget that this is now Austin Ekeler's second concussion this season alone. Remember, he got concussed against the Bengals and had to miss the next game after that, and then he could return 2 weeks after that to actually play again. So, I mean, that's something we definitely need to watch for. Also, speaking of concussions, starting right tackle Andrew Wiley is also in concussion protocol as well. And remember, we got to go against the Titans, and the Titans just beat the Texans. So that team is not an easy dub like we thought. And I don't care who we play at this point. After not only the fact that we lost to the Cowboys, but the way that we lost, nobody on this schedule is an easy dub. I mean, technically, when you're playing at the NFL level, it's the NFL. Nobody's technically an easy dub. But now I highly respect every opponent, because now I'm pretty sure people are starting to look at us as easy dubs again. It's starting to feel a lot like last year in certain ways. It's not record-wise, but boy, the Titans are no easy dub. The Cowboys should have been an easier dub than what I felt like the Titans would have been. And after we just lost to the Cowboys, we got to take the Titans seriously, and not having your starting right tackle, a little worrisome. Also, update on Brian Robinson. Commanders running back Brian Robinson Jr. has an ankle injury and will be evaluated throughout the week. Remember, that was a weird situation too, because when he got tackled, it looked really bad. Then he didn't get up for a while, and then he was able to kind of like walk off with some assistance to the sideline. Then he went straight to the locker room. Then it said he was questionable to return. I was surprised by that. I was like, wow, I thought he was out for the game with the way that injury was. I was more so worried about him being out for the rest of the season type of stuff. But he came out, and then after our defense was on the field for a little while, our offense came back out there, and then he was back out there and running the ball. Then for some reason we went into halftime. When we came out of halftime, he didn't play again, and I don't know what happened. It seemed like he got hurt, kept playing, go into halftime, rested, stopped playing. I don't know what happened in that meantime in the halftime, but they just felt like in that locker room it wasn't wise for him to continue playing in that game, even though before that they felt like it was for some reason. I don't exactly know what happened, but that was a weird situation. So now, when you think about it, this running back depth that we have is in shambles. Austin Ekeler, in my opinion, should not play against the Titans. I don't care what they say. Don't even do it. And just my personal opinion, not worth it, especially when you're dealing with head injuries. Brian Robinson is dealing with an ankle injury after dealing with other injuries that he's dealt with already throughout the season. This one's a new one. This isn't the same injury that he's been dealing with throughout the season. This is an additional injury to what he's already been dealing with. And then we cut Chris Rodriguez before the Cowboys game even started, like a couple of days before. And then Jeremy McNichols at this point is technically our only healthy running back right now on the entire roster. I mean, of course, we could re-sign Chris Rodriguez, and we could be optimistic about Brian Robinson playing against the Titans, but then again, should we just hold him out until after the bye week, like a lot of our other injured players, like a Marshawn Lattimore, like a Austin Ekeler, a lot of these guys, Andrew Wiley, maybe just wait until after the bye week to allow these guys to play again? I don't know, but either way, our running back situation is looking really ugly, and I'm about to break that down in a separate video. We're going to start to take a look at even some draft and free agency running backs. We'll get there. Hold on for that. That'll probably be a video I do maybe on Wednesday. Stay tuned for that. But we are definitely to the point where we need to start taking a look at some outside help at running backs right now. Now, the video I'm talking about for Wednesday, we're going to take a look at some guys we can get in 2025 that could come in and be like serious starters for us. You know, and we're going to dive into like, is it actually Brian Robinson, Austin Ekeler's fault and things like that? We're going to dive into that whole thing. That's Wednesday. But for now, what's some names in free agency that we can maybe get on like a very low end deal, like a veteran minimum, just to be able to step in and be an available body for us for this Titans game? Because again, Brian Robinson may not be available for the Titans game. Maybe you just want to hold him until after the bye week anyway. Austin Ekeler, not going to be available. Chris Rodriguez, still technically not on the roster, even though we can easily re-sign him. But if your top two running backs right now, which sounds like probably your best case scenario, are Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols, you probably want to go sign a guy off the street. So remember, you have Boston Scott, most recently with the Rams, but we also remember him from the Eagles, I believe. Damian Harris, mostly remember him from the Patriots, but most recently with the Bills. Matt Breida, most recently with the 49ers. Kareem Hunt, You know, he's had some great moments, and he's not even 30 years old yet. Most recently with the Cleveland Browns. Don't forget Latavius Murray, even though he is almost 35 years old. That's a crazy name to bring up. But Jerick McKinnon, most recently with the Chiefs, maybe him. Marlon Mack, most recently with the Cardinals, even though I more so think of him as a Colt. You have Lynn Bowden as well, along with Eno Benjamin, both from most recently with the Saints as well. I mean, those are some names out there. Like, we're probably going to have to start digging into these names. Don't be surprised if we sign one of these guys off the street just in case, because we just need bodies to go against the Titans. I'm not saying either of these guys are going to be like a game-changing addition to the Commanders right now. We just need somebody that can take a handoff from Jaden Daniels and not fumble the ball at this point. And we don't necessarily have that really on the practice squad right now. We just don't have another guy. We're going to end up more than likely signing one of these names, just to go ahead and give you the heads up. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, still farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. I really appreciate y'all for pulling up. If you made it this far in the video, you are the GOAT, man. I really appreciate you. Please make sure you like this video on the way out. I'm going to always try my best to read and reply to as many comments as possible. But again, these past couple of weeks, including this week going into Thanksgiving, really busy for me, especially since, I mean, also my birthday is on Saturday, the day before we play the Titans. So it's a lot going on right now, but I'm going to try my best to see as many comments as possible. If I ever get any downtime, I'm going to even try to go back and look at and go through some of the comment sections from videos from days ago, weeks ago, because I really feel bad for not reading a lot of the comments that y'all go through so much. Y'all take time out of y'all day to leave a comment and everything like that, asking questions. I really feel like it's rude of me to not get to a lot of those. So I'm really trying, so be patient with me. I appreciate it. But of course, speaking of comments, let me know how you feel about the Cliff Kingsbury part of this video, the first half. How do you feel about, like, do you feel like it's his fault? Do you feel like it's more so the players or more so him? Why do you feel like the offense is so bad? I've already given you my opinions and other people's opinions. Let me know if you have any additional opinions, or if you watched the all 22 tape, you rewatched the game and you figured something out that, hey, Cliff Kingsbury, this is something you can fix. Let me know that. And also let me know how you feel about this injury situation and how bad this running back room is right now health wise, and what are we gonna do there? Again, Wednesday, more than likely Wednesday, Thursday, whenever, just be on the lookout. I want to do a video this week before we play the Titans at, like, our running back situation long term. Right now, I'm talking about short term, this Titans game coming up. So let me know how you feel about the running back situation, this Titans game coming up. We'll talk long term going into 2025 and beyond later on this week, so stay tuned for that. Again, make sure you leave a like on this video on the way out. I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.